With Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater here, I wanted to make this video that's going to be diving deep down the rabbit hole to the series. It's going to talk about every single game and a lot of different elements that you probably don't know about. It's going to help you get a deeper perspective for the themes, messages, what the creator wanted to do, and so much more. I really feel like this video should help anybody like myself who's been a big fan. And if you're new to the series, I'm not sure that this video is for you right now because I'm going to have visual spoilers plus a lot details about the whole series. But if you want to stick around, feel free. That out of the way, I do have a giveaway for Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. It's going to be announced right on this channel on one of the videos. We're going to be doing multiple giveaways most likely. So all you have to do is like, comment, and make sure you're subscribed. And when you watch the videos, I'll announce it and say who's the winners. All right. That out of the way, let's get into it. So, man, it is 2024 at the time of making this video, and it's going to be a timeless video because it's going to stamp everything that the series has brought to the table for us fans. And I'm very excited about that because the future is looking good. And it's a beautiful time, to say the least, when it comes to Metal Gear and everything that they've done throughout the years. And now it's officially getting reintroduced. So I felt like getting this one off my chest because this is probably the #1 question that I've been asked. I have the Metal Gear Explained channel, I have my personal accounts, and throughout all the years, I've had endless amounts of questions about this. And before we dive into the actual details of the question, I want to talk about the series just so you can get some perspective on things and hopefully help some people out there as we go forward. And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this series has been around for so long. It's been around and created by Konami, Hideo Kojima, and a bunch of staff members. I mean, there's probably thousands upon thousands if we counted all the years of different developers and people involved. But 1987 was the first release. And I like to jump forward into 1998 because that's when the game became the global sensation and it revolutionized things as much as it did with the older ones, but just had something else to it, and you can really get into everything that it offered. And so for me, being able to share this conversation about the series and express my gratitude, first of all, and then also explore a bunch of different aspects, is going to be very important. And I want to start off and talk basically throughout this video about Hideo Kojima and Konami. First and foremost, no video game is ever made at this scale by one person. There was hundreds upon hundreds and even thousands at times of people working on the Metal Gear series, depending on the game. And all those staff members collaborated. And a lot of the things that we love, we tend to give all the glory to Hideo Kojima. And now he is the man who I also thank for imprinting his personality, his way of thinking. He's the writer, director, and he's just been incredible throughout the series. I mean, every single main installment he was a big part of. So for me, big tribute to him. But I do have done my research and done my homework, and I don't want to be a fanboy of him and leave out Konami, who not only funded everything, but they've helped tremendously. A lot of cool things that we love in the game actually came from different people that were on the team. Of course, they had to be approved by Hideo Kojima, and that just gives him all the credit regardless, right? So he made the right decisions of allowing these people. And as a matter of fact, he empowered people to come up with ideas in notebooks, and they'll share it with him, and we'll see which ones we'll like. And if it wasn't for the staff members, there wouldn't be such a good game for some of these. There's things that Kojima wanted in the games, storylines and gameplay wise, that weren't good. And that's okay. And if before I get into the topic of the main meat of the question about how do I feel about games without Kojima, that's what this video is really about, just to unmask it. The truth is, being asked that, it was hard to answer for many reasons. And even now I'm going to struggle a little because there's all different sides, and I don't want to play the game about who's I favor, because without a doubt it's going to be Kojima in general, because Konami's just a publisher. They're not a human being. There's human beings behind the scenes, but that being said, Kojima has my heart, and he's been a big role. So when I say these things about that, it's only to showcase that Kojima's ideas, just like Konami's ideas, probably weren't always the best, and they collaborated all together and they made it good. And one of the biggest and best things that I think Kojima has said in recent years was how he's grateful for Konami because they allowed him to do anything and everything he ever wanted. That is big respect, and that just gives them the big credit, because it's like, okay, well, they believed in you enough to feed you 160 million for one of your games. That's a lot of money to spend, but people won't take that because of what happened between them, and we're not going to get into that conversation. A lot of unknown legal issues and scenarios that were at play. But in the end of the day, it was a team effort. I actually know some of the staff members who really worked on this series, and I had discussions with them, as well as a lot of key information that has come out of the series as well. And so let's not fake the funk here and make it like if Kojima was perfect and everything he decided to do was great. The finishing product was great, and the way they presented it and done it, me, was great. So yeah, super exciting, super interesting, and I love the series so much because of that. So I want to take that moment to thank Konami and Kojima. And now I'm going to get into pieces about the future before I get into what do I really feel. In the end of the day, there's themes and messages in the Metal Gear series that has changed my life. And I think, being somebody who's a little spiritual, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual in the sense that I'm humble to that there's a God. I do my prayer / meditation, whatever you want to call it. I do my, tribute to give back to the world in different ways. And I have that eye of consciousness. And with that, there's important media that has to mean something to me. So when I watch things, I love it to be more powerful. And this series, and we're looking at Metal Gear Solid 1, watching some boss fight stuff from it. But this series had that at a scale that I've pretty much never seen other games get this deep with. They purposely had messages and themes, and sometimes they'll break the fourth wall and just tell you like, hey, dude, get it right. And with Metal Gear Solid, for example, you're playing through this game and you're constantly reminded that your genes and fate is tied to each other, right? Are you going to pass it on to your next generation? And, Liquid being the brother of Snake, and then Snake basically killing off Genome soldiers throughout the game, which were his own family, and how he likes to kill like his father. And it was this whole deeper layer of like, who are you really? But it's also speaking to the player, like, why did you kill those people? There's a non-lethal route in this game that you don't have to take. And to me, that message hit me more than any video game ever did. And it was the starting point of revolution in my heart and in my mind. You know, I don't want to hurt nobody. I want to live right. I want to do good. And even though sometimes, you know, defensive purposes and even just craziness, right? Just pride or something can get in the way and make you violent or make you behave a certain way. It's not okay. And this video game expresses that through the story, through everything in the gameplay. You don't have to actually kill most of these guys that you're shooting at. And video games never had that behavior. And so it really moved me, you know, and touched me in a way that I don't think any video game has ever done when it comes to the series, because they did this consistently, guys. I mean, literally all the time. And so it's one of those powerful things that I personally am grateful for and I absolutely love. But this is 1998, so I was still a kid and I didn't even wrap my head around it fully. It was touching my heart, tugging at my soul, helping me feel better, be better. But I was still young, still trying to figure it all out. And that's what was cool, is that it was the games were developing my consciousness as much as I was developing and trying to grow and break free from my family's tragedies. Okay, my father was just as bad as Big Boss in my own real life way. And, you know, I felt like Solid Snake, and I felt like I had friends who were this violent, like our buddy here, Gray Fox, or, you know, Liquid Snake and things like that, where it just was hard. It's like, I'm stuck in this world and I got to figure it out, but I got to be better. And that's the message. And then at the end, of course, it tells you to live. It tells you to just live. And it's such a powerful thing. And even throughout the game, there's moments and powerful things. And we're watching Gray Fox here. He actually really made me realize things in my own family. My mother was abused by my father, and she dealt with trauma, and she was like Gray Fox, you know, without knowing it. Watching my mother suffer hurt me more type of thinking after the effects and the trauma from it. Without knowing it, people do that to themselves. They'll sabotage themselves with alcohol or drugs, and so it was very heavy for me as a kid. And seeing Gray Fox feel the same way, metaphorically, really tugged at me. And this is not just him, but like I said, throughout the game, we would have to do a deeper breakdown, and we will for each of the installments. But this is important, and I just wanted to kind of introduce you to part of why these things are so powerful for me as a human being. And again, we'll have a big series about it, but I just wanted to start off with that and then also bring it back to genes, how to escape your genetics, right? Generational curses and all of those things. And you're going to make it so that everybody just pass it along. It's a powerful thing for me. And yeah. So we're not going to continue with part 1, but I want to dive into part 2 and just help you guys think about how powerful part 2 was. Okay. Now this game, to me, you know, it's just ridiculous. First of all, in 2001, it released, one of the most difficult years. You know, 9/11 happened. I'm a New Yorker. lost some friends. And at that time, I also had a bigger consciousness. I started waking up, and started to really see myself and understand myself a little bit better. I'm like 19 years old or something at that time, but it helped because there was so many layers to this game. Never mind the connections to 9/11 and how misinformation and, everything that was happening was very, very close to it. As a matter of fact, they were about to cancel this game and they decided not to. And not cancel it, delay it because of the end scene where there's a crash, which I'm not going to get too heavily in the spoilers. I'm trying to avoid a little bit of spoilers, but that situation was very devastating for me in real life. But in this game, it's like, wow, this is so exactly what's happening. And then you find out, in the beginning, Snake is portrayed as a terrorist, and then Solidus, you have to literally fight him, knowing what I know now, where he's pretty much a hero. We're fighting against him, and we should be helping him to a certain extent because he was trying to stop the Patriots as well. And so there's a complicated, longer video that I would have to do, but that storyline right there alone is like, wow, like you're fighting against the people who could probably save things. And sometimes misinformation and in general being influenced is not good. And the name of the game when it comes to part 2 is memes. And you have the powerful storyline there. What are memes? It's like, let's just talk about culture, poetry, your passions, your joy, all of those things, right? And so this game portrays that, but it does it in certain ways that's very important, okay? And we're going to skip outside of our buddy Snake here because this is probably one of the best missions. We've had such a cool mission, just the tanker mission alone, but there's so many layers to this experience when you're playing as the so-called hero of the day, Raiden, who is getting played just like you did in part 1, and he's mimicking everything you are and pretty much taking you to another level. And so for me, this simulation aspect of it is a powerful tool to teach us and guide us about how we do that to ourselves. We program ourselves sometimes. We don't even need the Patriots, right? We can do this on our everyday life, the things that we eat, the things that we watch, listen to. All of these things have influence on us. And part 2 is a reminder of that. And imagine being 19 years old and Kojima speaking to you, or Konami and staff speaking to you about the influences in your life. Are you just a wannabe like Raiden, wannabe Snake? And do you really have experience and what is going on with you? And so these games connected with me in ways that I couldn't even begin to tell you. I was still developing and growing as a human and figuring myself out. And just like Raiden, he don't know what's going on. He's a hot mess in this game. And throughout the game, you don't just have him as a hot mess. You have to deal with Rose, who's just as hot as him. And she's a mess too. But you start to see it and you start to say, wow, I can relate to this guy if I was on the field, my little virtual gaming training. And then you're going to get an awesome person who is the real hero. You never get to play as him, but you get to see him. And this is where that Jesus conversation gets in for me. I look at Jesus as the greatest example. If you don't believe in Jesus, that's fine. But his story about being kind and gentle and good to people, it's powerful. And it's just something that I adore and I try to be like. And so separating religion from that, because religion has nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus is just a great historical person that they put in these books. Okay. And so respecting him and keeping that separate, seeing, wow, he can do something that I should be doing. And so the reason I say that is because Raiden is basically at that time me, and then Pliskin, aka Solid Snake, is the Jesus-like figure who basically saves the day in this game tons of times. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful synergy at the time when I was trying to find myself and grow and gain knowledge. Okay. And of course, this is just a video game. And hey, man, how do you connect all those things together? I definitely always do this. The Metal Gear series is that deep for me that it takes it to another levels. And then you take guys like Vamp, who's the blood sucking people in your life who will drain you from your heroism, right? Let's just say. And that's just a metaphor of what I feel. And there's so many layers. Like I said, I would have to do a breakdown, and these things will be 20 hours each game type of breakdowns. And maybe you guys are interested in that. You let me know with some likes. I would have to work on it very carefully, but I can definitely do that. But the point is those are the things that I absolutely love. And then you take this blank slate, aka white-haired man, and you don't know nothing about him other than what they present to you. You put him into the universe of our hero who saves the day over and over, and you allow him to make Solid Snake look like an amazing hero. And so for me, this is where it's very touching and powerful. And throughout the game, there's so many different things. I mean, I would have to go down the list from Rosemary being just a regular girl on a crazy mission like this. When life is crazy, I felt like I was in war in my life. Almost 30 years of my life were all war, unfortunately. And people don't realize the PTSD that comes with that. And I finally broke free as I got a little older, but that came through hard work. And so, you're looking at being saved by this Jesus-like figure, aka Solid Snake. That was where it was touching for me. And then you have to become the hero, and you're getting pushed to just stop the bombs and fight Metal Gear and do all these things. I mean, Raiden literally fought more Metal Gears than Snake did at the time. And so it's pretty wild to see him in this kind of state of being. And so just a powerful story. And then by the end, you get the incredible reveal, let's just call it, about who's who, what's what, and how this all plays out. So for me, Kojima being the writer, having these themes and messages in there, but this is also Konami and everybody else involved. So never sleep and think that it was one person. The surveys were made for Raiden to be the main protagonist because that's what people were voting. The surveys that they took, blonde-headed guy, that was what they made him to be, his whole persona. So, and it wasn't just a Kojima thing, like I said. And now we're going to move on. There's too much to get into with each game, guys. So we're going to kind of take it easy with that and start diving into wondering who Big Boss was. And this is where Kojima started to really unwind. And I want to kind of step back for a second from these breakdowns. But the reason I want to bring this up is because Kojima's, after part 2, he didn't want to make no more Metal Gears. He's expressed he was done. He wanted to move on, try to make something different. He said this numerous times, and I totally get it, right? You don't want to keep sticking to the same story and so on. But what's funny was that he never wanted the game to be called Metal Gear because he wanted it to be about politics and all this other things. So Konami gave it that name. So the fact that we love the name might have been called something weird. So that's just a funny little quick snippet. And then he got pushed to make part 3 because part 2 was so incredible. And I mean, very incredible. And in part 3, he brings up what is the biggest prequel. I mean, like the greatest prequel that you'll ever see to this day. I have not seen one that's greater. No video game, no movie. I haven't seen it, guys. And it would be nice. Please leave it in the comments if there is one. But this prequel right here took you to Big Boss. In the first 4 games, you play as Solid Snake and Raiden on one of them. So it's like three games, and then you play Raiden on the 4th. And those games pretty much open the door for who Big Boss is. Everything was kind of a tribute to Big Boss. But as you're watching here, Big Boss was nothing. It was all the boss, which this is her right here, a tribute to her, basically everything that she has done throughout the years, how she made Big Boss, how she evolved and sacrificed herself in this very game, was pretty much Kojima saying, I'll give my all to this. And you think of the Snake Eater song, I'll give my all, not for honor, but for you. And so he's doing that for the fans. And so there started being this very personal things that really hit me, not only on my own life with this game, but with Kojima. So he'll sacrifice it all. And this game's themes had to do with scenes, aka scenarios, and being put in these outrageous scenarios against his own mentor, boss, lover, friend, mother. I don't know what, we could go on making videos about who she really was to him. But the concept is she had to do this for the better of society and for the love of you and her son, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But this is just one of the most powerful things that really hurt me the most, but also inspired me the best. It hurt because we all have to make sacrifices. And much like I said earlier with Jesus, his storyline of sacrificing, this time it's in full display. She sacrificed it all. And it was a powerful experience to lift up Big Boss and to lift up the series. She had to give it all up. And just like Kojima had to do all these years, because we loved Metal Gear so much, he made more and more games specifically for us, because that's what we demanded. And this game right here probably won't get into it too heavily, guys, because there's so many layers to get into. And we are covering the Delta series, so I'll have plenty of videos about this game. But the point is, that message was clear. And Snake killing one for another to revive, and we're going to pause it there just so you can take a look. He's sacrificing her, or she's sacrificing herself to lift up Big Boss, who lifts up the series. And this scenario, aka the scene, the living embodiment of ourselves and how we need to be and how we must grow. We must do better. But it's never easy to let go. And the crazy part, the game is called Snake Eater, and guess what Snake is doing? Eating his own tail, aka killing off the boss. And then Solid Snake comes in and takes out Big Boss as well, which he's eating his own tail, his literal father and mentor. And so this is why Metal Gear Explain's logo is the Ouroboros. And this is me trying to teach about the series and the meaningfulness and power behind it. And this is a sign of infinite life. And it's a beautiful message, for the game, but also in real life, and something you should always try to aspire to do to grow. But it's also a dangerous tool to eat your own tail and to fall victim to that. And so now I do want to get into what I say is probably the greatest end game before the end game, aka Metal Gear Solid 4. And I'll be honest with you guys, I could never ever talk about Metal Gear Solid 4 without being completely canon that I feel like it's a misunderstood game, and it's so amazing in so many levels, which we're not going to get into in this video. I got to make a video about that. But if you watch carefully, you're seeing an old Snake, okay? Kojima again relating to himself and society. You're seeing a Snake who's losing his senses. His back always hurts. He's literally crippled in this game. And his will is tested over and over and over, all the way until the very end. There's a microwave torture scene where you have to spam a button to get through it. And even that is an example. The main theme is senses, but in Japanese they call it the will. And so a part of that is the boss's will, Big Boss's will, Zero's will, everybody being misguided, misinterpreting what's true. The boss's will has been misinterpreted over and over and over again. Ocelot pretty much fulfills her will while fulfilling the Big Boss's will as well. And so it's a special thing in this game, which we'll get into about Ocelot. But the principle is that this game really blew the doors wide open to all of the messages and how things happen. Okay. Times dissolves everything. Okay. And war has become economical grind for companies. I mean, for countries, never mind companies. And they're just out there trying to get their money rather than, hey, let's fight this war to save the people or something. Okay. So, and this is where this game talks about all of these things. The years of the game, the series being around too long. That's why Snake is so old, kind of like an inside joke, but also a metaphor like, hey, dude, let it go. Okay. It's dissolving. What more can we say? And creatively, there's a lot of beauty in this game when it comes to how it all comes together with the beauty and the beast, who are actually terrible. They're stuck in war and they become traumatized to the point that they can't live normal lives, that they have to become war machines. And so the beauty and the beast, the beauty become beasts. And so there's this metaphor within it as well. And this happens to us. And remember, I'm trying to give you guys relatable stories about my life. I was still growing up, but at 2008, I was already in my 20s. And I was out there in the world thinking or trying to be better, but partying, making music, traveling, and becoming a beast, while deep inside my heart, I live with this pure joy and peacefulness. And the beast of me, I mean, I'm not getting into me, who I am, but the principle is we all have those beasts. They don't have to be something crazy. I wasn't doing anything outrageous, but it doesn't matter, right? Some people might have uh eating problems. They eat too much junk food, they don't work out, or people might have career issues or relationship issues. All of those are beasts that we must conquer. And we have the beauty within us, but don't let it get lost. So this game is a reminder of that, that it all can dissolve if you don't work on it. You don't work hard to heal it and help it grow. And so this game does some incredible things, and it puts you in the middle of a war where there's the rebels and, of course, the controlling enemies trying to take over. Those guys are never going to be your friends. Sometimes that's what you have to realize in life. That's how it happens. Then there's the people who you can help and that will help you. You got to know the difference, because that's, if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to go through these struggling times, and we've all done it, right? Try to help someone and they basically influence you in a bad way, or they fight with you when you're just trying to be helpful. And it hurts and it sucks, but that's how life goes. And so there's plenty of these thoughts and feelings of how things work and how things go. And it's so crazy because, again, this game has to do with your will, aka your senses as well. Don't lose it all. But in life, we tend to get lost in things. Sometimes you're lost in too much work. Some other people are lost in too much play, right? And some people just need to regroup. And so with this game, of course, it was at the end game of end games. Everybody appeared, a bunch of fan service, tributes. And after 25 years or whatever it was, this game has been around too long. And this was kind of like that metaphor. I believe it was 20 years. Yeah, 20 years basically when that game released. So just some food for thought when it comes to Guns of the Patriots. And now I'm going to let this sit for a second, but I do want to talk about a couple of things when it comes to Kojima and Konami, because that's what the main topic of this video and the reason I made it is that people credit Kojima for everything. And that's not the case, but he did imprint himself consistently. One of the few directors that consistently features himself in the game, you know, highlights that he's the writer, director, producer. He does so many little things that I think are fun. Even this box, for example, when they look at the box, no Hideo, nowhere to hide. It was all this cool trailers and funny stuff about Nowhere to Hide trailer. And they kind of put it into the actual game rather than marketing. No place for Hideo. And that's just an example of what he's saying. It's like, I'm ready to move on, ready to let go. Just like Snake was. He was too old for this. There's so many details of like this small information. And how would you feel if you made the same story series for 20 plus years? Wouldn't you want to let it go and try something different? And Kojima did want to try something different, but he also wasn't going to neglect all the money that Konami was going to throw at him. They made him the executive for Konami. They give him a boatload of money, all the power he ever wanted. And people who will say, oh, they forced him to do this. No, they didn't. He doesn't have to. He signed those contracts and he wanted to work with them over and over and over. Rightfully so, you know? And he gave us one of the greatest series, for me, the greatest series. And just so you guys know, I think Metal Gear Solid 4 is a masterpiece. I actually think all the games I'm talking about, all the 9 chronological official lore games are masterpieces. Perfect tense. Outside of that, that's debatable, but the principle is the same. And so I absolutely adore what Kojima has been able to do, but I also don't just give him all the credit. And when people ask me, this is the big topic, and the reason I'm making this video is, how do you feel about Kojima's not being there if Konami makes another game? And we're going to pause it right here. Director, producer, and writer at times. For most of it. He has other writers as well. But this is a tough conversation because I'm a big fan of Kojima. And whatever happens, it's going to happen. Business is business. But in the end of the day, I absolutely love these games. So as they remake these games, I'll be very happy with that, to explore it and enjoy it. As you can see, we got Konami there as well. Right? All right. And so now I want to move on from that, and we're going to stay in the topic, don't worry, but I want to touch on our buddy here, aka you, the player, aka me, and the overall series, because Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain was such a masterpiece, and it really destroyed me on so many levels because Kojima really knew it was his last one. And the message that he leaves on the tape, the message that Paz leaves as well, which is so powerful. You know, I couldn't stop crying when I listened to the Paz tapes. And then I honestly just was so moved by the way it ended, with him saying, "You are me. We both together are Big Boss." And that to me was the game changer. But if you paid attention to the series, you know, right after, and I was kind of giving you guys some of the themes, Peace Walker was about peace, trying to find peace. And they used the war deterrence, and, you know, you built a base, you built all this stuff, you did this beautiful stuff, and it's like all about peace, trying to get peace in the world. We have to fight for it, we'll fight for it, but we want everybody to stop. And then Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain comes, and you lose it all in the game, but you also lose it all as the player, as far as the identity that you built. And then now you're feeling that pain. And then knowing that Kojima is going to leave. He knew this was all planned, basically. He was ahead of the game. And as he worked on this, it's the big farewell and the big phantom pain that you'll feel for as long as possible. Is it possible that he'll come back? I don't know how good or bad the business or how things ended with them, but I do know that the Phantom Pain had such powerful themes. Race and revenge were some of the two biggest, but really, you're dealing with a ghost, and you had Kaz and you had Ocelot, which I haven't talked much about, but two of the most important characters to really be the support role and help carry you, take you to that next level. And I absolutely love that. And I think that we needed more of them throughout the series, which we got a lot of Ocelot, but to show you Big Boss wasn't alone. And even though we felt how we felt during this game, and then after Kojima leaves, and then, of course, as time goes on, it's been 10 years soon, you feel that phantom pain, but you're not alone. We have each other as a community. And the Metal Gear series has never been just Kojima. His personality, his approval of things, and his main messages and themes were very inspirational and powerful. But the core of the gameplay and the story and different things were done by others. And it's hard to accept that. It's hard to accept this Phantom, aka Venom Snake. And that's the truth. And so the community went crazy and we saw that. But in the end of the day, those who stay true to the messages and the themes understand this metaphor. And Kojima knew about all this. He knew this type of reaction would happen. And it was a masterful exit to the series because he wasn't going to keep on keeping on, as they say. So I understood all this, knowing that Kaz didn't like it, that Ocelot will end up being an enemy later to your son, that throughout this series, you know, those kids that you don't consider your kids really were. And that Big Boss was not as important as you, the player, are. And that's what the message about the phantom pain, feeling that pain, it's like, look, you should be fulfilled within yourself. And of course, they kind of tease the whole original game happening because they called it Operation. And so that is awesome. But in the end of the day, the series basically came to a close and you had to wake up from your coma that you lived in. And so to me, that's probably the most amazing part of this Phantom Pain. And the reason why this is important is because guess what? We did not react very well. We did not behave really good as a community. And the whole thing about Kojima, and this is where like my take really gonna start opening up. Kojima being gone, they should never make another Metal Gear game. It's like, well, they made like 10 plus spin-offs without him. And none of the spin-offs were the worst. He didn't approve of all of them, but they were decent because we have the foundation of what a Metal Gear game is. Okay. You know, it's in the stealth genre. He made it an open world in the Phantom Pain, but before that, it was linear, really fun, linear experiences. And now we have the way the stories are presented, the way they use political and historical aspects within the game to kind of guide the storyline, giving you something special. There's plenty of this type of thing this game has offered us. And so I am going to get into the fact that, yes, I do feel that Konami should make another original Metal Gear game. Now, they have to be careful not to retcon everything, but at the same time, they have to have creative freedom to not just be a copy paste game. So, whether you want to tell a story about one of these very cool characters like the boss, Ocelot, you know, maybe some more write in with the spin off, they can do all those things. And then bringing back Solid Snake or Big Boss with his own storyline, you have to make sure that you do the justice for them and make them badass. Making sure that some cutscenes are well thought out, that they're iconic, that the storyline has some really good, impactful aspects. There's a lot of this stuff, guys, that I think that Konami would have to do. And as a matter of fact, I've written scripts and I have a game design document for the Metal Gear game, Metal Gear. And I believe in it. I do believe that it's possible to make something great. that's going to move the new and the old community. Of course, you can't please everybody because that's not the goal. But the point is to do something spectacular that's going to inspire. So, that being said, we do have these remakes to look forward to for the moment. We have the Master Collection Volume 1, maybe Part 2 is coming. We have this remake for Delta Snake Eater on the way. You're watching comparison video of it. And I do believe this is spectacular. There's plenty of other things that are very good that I can't say for certain are gonna be as good as what I think Delta is gonna be. I think Delta is the easy classic to remake. All they're doing is remaking it, so I think it's doable. But if they went and kept doing these remakes and then worked on heavily 5 years on a actual Metal Gear new storyline, introducing something special, I think we can have ourselves what we need to continue this, because I would like another generation of games. The remakes are going to be fun to play, but a new generation, a new storyline experiences would also be spectacular. That's just my opinion. And so, of course, getting into my specific game, I would love this to happen, and it would be up to you guys. Let's start a GoFundMe and get me, you know, $1 mil or $2 mil to start up a studio, and I know I can do great things from there and get investments and make it happen. I'm not joking, but I am. But anyway, the point is it's definitely possible. So the question is, what do you want to see for an original game? And go from there. Now, I will say this. Of course, without a shadow of doubt, there's going to be Kojima fans. Even myself. I'm not this guy who's like only Kojima. I love all video games. But at the end of the day, I know his themes, his messages are very powerful. I know his personality with the quirkiness or the little silly sexual stuff that they'll throw in there with the butts and different things like that. They're funny, they're fun. They're not all Kojima, some of it is Konami, but I don't care about every detail. I'm not going to be like, it has to be exact. I would want an original story. So when I watch these new episodes of new movies that after 20 years they remade, or not remade, but rebooted the series, I don't like it when a creator, director, developer, writer doesn't actually have creativeness, and they're just like, let's make the same story again so fans won't get mad. I don't think that's good or inspirational or any of that. I don't need the formulaic experience. So for me, I will be okay with them making it. Will it be good is another question, right? That's the bigger conversation of like, can they actually do it, right? But I do believe that it's possible because we have the foundation. As long as it's within the themes and the concepts and it has certain things, you have to tell a really good story. And the way I would probably do that, just to kind of end this video, is I'll make 20 stories. I'll hire hundreds of writers, whoever, and then whichever story I feel sticks the best to the themes and messages and has the imprint of what a Metal Gear game is, and that of course is a powerful story on its own, that's the one I want to go with. Because, for example, the Snake Eater game that we're going to play when it comes out is actually the best example, because it is a standalone story and it's well done. You don't have to know all the lore to get into it. You just play it and you're like, oh my God, really? What the heck? And it's that good. And so that's the kind of story you want to introduce if you're going to try to come back. That's just my opinion. But what do I know, right? So that's how I feel. And just to answer that question, it's a very difficult question. It's taken me almost an hour to even address because it's that powerful for me. But I love this series and I love Metal Gear, as you could tell. There's too much to get into in one video. I had to get this all off my chest because it's probably one of the most disturbing questions for me. And I felt like just letting go, not writing a script and giving you this right here fully so that you can get a little more clarity from my perspective. And then the hopes that, you know, the future of this series continues to evolve and get better and to grow. And that depends on us, right? It depends on us. Can we do that? I think we can. And so hopefully Konami will take their time if they do a remake. I mean, an original. And of course, there's going to be skepticals, but it's fine. We'll find out when the time comes. But with that being said, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment because I do have the giveaway for the Delta. And we're going to be giving that away right here on these videos. So we'll be announcing it. So make sure you go check that out and do that. I have some breakdowns for the Delta and so much more on Metal Gear. It should be popping up on your screen right now. Go check it out. See you guys there. I appreciate y'all very much. Stay safe.